Hello. Today I want to talk to you about faith in video games again. My intention was for this to be part of the Kentucky Route Zero video, but I decided I needed to keep it to a more reasonable length. Just more for my own sanity and for the video's quality. I threw out then everything I had written originally about Pentiment because I had written the same essay twice with a different source. Pentiment is by Obsidian Entertainment, and it is about what it means to be an artist. It is also a late medieval murder mystery, where you solve crimes without forensic science. A strange combination, but I trust Shower UX reviewer Josh Sawyer to make a good game. From all the interviews I've watched, Josh Sawyer does not believe in auteur theory. Hell yeah. He heavily credited everyone who worked on this game for shaping it into what it ended up being. The whole team did a great job. The music, the art direction, and the writing. This game lands very high up on my list of all-time games. Pentiment is about a lot of things. It is about faith, it is about art, about time, history, and moral responsibility. What does faith mean when it's inseparable from its culture? How do you make art in that situation? What do you do in the face of time's ability to wipe away everything? What is justice? As with all of my videos, I highly recommend playing the game before watching the videos because I do not avoid spoilers, and I will be talking to you as if you have played the game. I also recommend watching Andrei Rublev by Andrei Tarkovsky, as it will be discussed as well. However, I also always recommend Andrei Tarkovsky. What is the purpose of religious art? Perhaps I should first answer, what is the purpose of art? Any answer does seem like an oversimplification. Anyways, here I go. Its purpose is to communicate some truth to the perceiver. If you have a better 7-word answer, let me know. The divide between art and Christian art did not exist back then as it does today. Art needed a sponsor, and that would either be the church or a wealthy patron. The only real means of making art was within that set limited framework. Creating a divide between religious art and art doesn't help in this time. If the intent of religion is really about coming to understand the capital T truth, then art and religious art should have the same goal. Perhaps this understanding of the purpose of art actually just comes from the fact that all art used to be religious. Art's communication does change with its audience. What it chooses to communicate becomes a reflection of that time, that place, and people. As time passes, and we grow separate from the originally intended audience, it also becomes an object that speaks about what the people of that time found important. It fulfills the same goal of communicating a truth to the perceiver, just that both the truth and the perceiver are no longer the same. Andrei Tarkovsky is my personal favorite example of Christian art. Probably because he is also my favorite example of art, tied with Shushu, of course. I need more media that is in direct conversation with Tarkovsky. So far my list only includes Pentiment, Death Stranding, and the film Never Gonna Snow Again. Annihilation is a Tarkovsky fan film, but it isn't in conversation with him. But those last 15 minutes are kinda great. Well, there is a difference in scale between Andrei Rublev and Pentiment. Andrei Rublev being about history on a nation's scale, compared to Pentiment's following a single town. However, both are about generations of artists. As a fan of the film Andrei Rublev, the further I played, the more I realized that this game is an adaptation of the film. Protagonists are named Andreas and Andrei, whose artists are in a time of change, questioning the purpose of their art. It's set across many years, And in the third act, you follow a different, younger artist. If I take a step back, the film itself is directed by someone named Andrei, made during a time of change, during a time when the purpose of art is being questioned, as the government has been censoring it. Andrei Tarkovsky's films get unintentionally meta the more you look into them. In Andrei Rublev, Andrei refuses to paint the Last Judgment. However, contrary, in Pentiment, Klaus feels the need to paint the revolt, as he refuses to hide the history of Tassing. And similar, the ending of Andrei Rublev shows his icons still important to faith today. And Pentiment ends with the mural of Tassing passing down history for further generations. Both are statements about why we make art, why we must make art. We do it for someone else's sake. You start as Andreas Mahler, as he's finishing up his masterpiece while working at the Abbey scriptorium. Throughout the game, it will make a clear distinction between you, the player, and Andreas. Andreas is his own person, and while you may get to pick Andreas's schooling, studies, and interests, there is a lot outside of your control, just as there is a lot outside of his. As an artist, he is to be married, as he cannot be a master without being married. This is arranged for Andreas. You don't have a choice. This being a murder mystery, without forensic science, all you have is the information you get out of people. Talking with people provides you with intentions and timelines that you have to match up and weigh for yourself. To get information from people, you have to act according to the culture of the people, honoring nobles to their faces, honoring religion to the monks and the nuns. The game becomes a morality play. Playing along is what gets you the information you need, but here arises an issue. The more time you spend investigating a person, the more evidence you have, creating a confirmation bias. Because there's no forensic science, the game will never tell you if you picked the right person, and that changes this whole process. As the game goes on, you realize you do not have enough proof at any point to make any concrete judgment call, and your thought switches from, I think they're guilty, to, well, I think they deserve it the most, or, I think their death is most acceptable. Maybe they didn't kill anyone, but they're probably going to get burned to death for heresy for other reasons. However, what if you think you know who did it? And you agree with them. When I heard Lucky's story, I didn't care to find out if he was guilty. This isn't a fun mystery to be solved. You are going to take the life of someone, and you're going to hurt the people around them. And then, you will see your actions ripple out for generations. Brother Piero, one of the fellow monks in the scriptorium, is not afraid of progress the way Father Journeau and Father Thomas are. He understands that his style of art is old and advises you that your art be representative of what is, instead of painting the month of November how the month has always been painted. Paint it how it is. Paint the November that you see. Make art that will say something to people years from now. Art should add something to the conversation, not just parrot previous attempts. The town of Tassing is a fictional town built on Roman ruins. Just as a lot of Catholic holidays are repurposed from pagan ones, it is easy for everyone if you just switch what is celebrated, but keep the celebration. People might internally celebrate for the old reasons. Il Peter might still in secret practice pagan beliefs, but he still gives Christian greetings. And this is how pagan holidays become Christian. We see a celebration of St. John's Feast that, to someone who was raised Protestant, looks extremely pagan. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's fascinating to see how cultures have just blended over the years. Christianity and Catholicism have been tools of the ruling class to oppress the working class since Rome decided that it would be useful. Faith as an action ends up being more important than the object of that faith. Smokey, the local charcoal burner, finds comfort in how legends have been passed down verbally throughout generations, and as long as there are people to tell them, they'll still exist. But time will have its way, be that progress or the muddling of the past. Like Martin Luther, like the dual stories of the founding of Tassing, pagan and Catholic. You cannot control it. You can only try to save what you can. As Mother Illuminata says, only God is unchanging. Almost everyone you meet will say, Lord willing, or God keep you. This phrase is both a saying of trust and acceptance. With how much is outside of one's control, it becomes a comfort to say. The purpose of prayer is open to interpretation. Some consider a means of bargaining with God, and some see it as a means of aligning yourself to His will. Tassing is built on Roman ruins. We don't decide what gets passed down, but we might be lucky enough to someday become ruins. Everywhere is built on a burial ground. We will still say, God bless you when someone sneezes, just like we'll still say, go to hell, just like we'll still say, roll down the car window. Thing separate from meaning, sign and signified, yet only the sign will remain. Unlike an Andrei Rublev, Andreas Mahler does not choose to be bound by faith. Andreas is already a defined person, and you don't always have control over him. He makes choices during the 7 years between Acts 1 and 2, and there isn't anything you can do to avoid that. The conversation you can have with Brigitte at the start of Act 2 creates a distance between you and Andreas. When she asks you a question, it gives you no option to answer. You can comfort her about the loss of her child, but you can't share why you've thought this through. When the Abbey is on fire, Andreas will run in to save the books. You can't stop him. If it is God's will, why do children die? When there is need for blame, do you blame God or yourself? Was it punishment for not being holy enough? Brigitte asks, to which Andreas responds, even Mary lost her son. And in that moment, I understand faith again. I'm not Catholic. Hell, I'm not a lot of things. But I do think Protestants could use a bit more Mary in their faith. But in that conversation, while you can say that to Brigitte, it doesn't mean anything to Andreas, as he cannot bring himself to return to his wife. I have things myself I haven't forgiven God for. I can have all of this knowledge and understanding, but it doesn't always translate. I can have 4 years of Christian college. Doesn't mean a thing. Part of this game's background religion is the game's decision to follow the day's times of worship, prayer, and eating, and within these rhythms, an importance is placed on food. Food is a detail that tells you about who these people are societally. How much food is set out? What types of food are set out? If they are lower class, did they cook meat? And is this a normal thing? Or just because you're their guest? I could not tell you if Andreas has true faith, because I don't know what it means to have faith. Not today, and certainly not in the 16th century. Maybe Andreas has faith if you play him as faithful as you could, but I didn't do that. As you leave the Abbey at the end of Act 1, Brother Pierre tells you, go. The world needs you more than the Abbey does. likely a reference to the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, as it mirrors what Father Zosima tells Alyosha. The monks and the nuns in the Abbey are here for a variety of reasons. Some of them are here because they have disabilities, and that prevents them from being on their own. Others are here because they were sent by their parents, or forced to convert. Only a handful actually chose this life. So, while it may be extremely easy to dislike a lot of the monks in Pentiment, for a lot of them, this choice was made for them. These walls were all they'll ever know for the rest of their time. Unable to marry, Illuminata makes peace with it, but it's obvious that she has a disappointment here. But she knows her life wouldn't be much better outside. As a woman, she knows there are very few options in life. Brother Guy, while lacking empathy for the peasants' suffering, was also forced into this life. Is it fair to judge people for their inability to commit to a faith that they made no choice to? They might have easier lives than the peasants, but they have less freedom. I genuinely like a lot of the monks and nuns. I only dislike maybe 4 or 5 of them, and even 2 of those I'm sympathetic towards. Doesn't mean I have to like them, though. This lack of choice, however, still, to some extent, affects the peasants. Peasants live at the bottom of a hill, and when it rains, their land floods. They have to pay their taxes to the Abbey, and they also have to pay the miller, so survival's really the only goal. These high taxes are both the fault of the abbot, and also from pressure within the empire. As the scriptorium finds itself out of use as the times have changed, there's not really the same income coming in. However, when dining with Journeau, it becomes obvious that his standards of living have not decreased the same way the peasants have. Journeau falls outside of Pierrot's Paint November as it is, instead following traditions, even as they no longer benefit anyone. Journeau, if I'm being generous, is in a hard situation. Despite that, he has made life harder on the peasants in a way the previous prior did not. He has made rules to prevent them from harvesting firewood or herbs from the forest, and without even using the forest himself. He is young for an abbot, and perhaps his inexperience is to blame. But that doesn't free him from responsibility. I wish this game wasn't so relevant, as Asheville, North Carolina has flooded, and no one in power is supplying them or supporting them, instead using force to prevent them from getting the resources they need from a closed-down, powerless supermarket. In this game, that would be the forest that the peasants aren't allowed to gather resources in. And in real life, baby formula. Today, religion still has a strong bearing on our life, as abortion rights get revoked because it is now considered murder by some Christians. But also state rights are important, so murder's fine in some states, I guess. Nixon and Reagan weaponized Christianity as a right-wing tool. Religion is used to criticize homosexuality, and then that is used to pull books representing that experience from libraries. But sorry, you can't censor the Nazis because free speech is important. Fuckers. If you're a Christian, hi, thanks for watching this video. If you're a Christian who drinks alcohol and another Christian who thinks it's wrong to drink alcohol went to your house, went through your cabinets, and poured all the alcohol down the sink unprompted, and then they told you, I'm doing this because I care about your soul, you'd probably not want to be friends with them anymore. So if a Christian thinks it's fine to be gay and you feel like you should confront them, don't! Religion is not a thing I can escape from under. It is part of my culture as an American, and it is a thing I grew up under. Those belief systems are etched into me to some extent. That is a framework I will always view the world through, and I can do my best to view the world differently, but it will always be there. I don't know how to remove both personal and societal conditioning that colors my perception of the world. I know I've always found myself to be somewhat of an absurdist. I find it easier to laugh at bad things, but stories of deliverance in the Old Testament are in contrast to the New Testament's call for joy as resistance. Jesus does trash the wares of small business owners who exploit foreigners. That's pretty cool. I will admit that my heart wants violent uprising, and my absurdist nature only really seems to work on the things I go through. My empathy does not believe in absurdism. But I guess I'll just live in the contradictions, because I've not found a better way. Allow me to follow Brother Piero's advice of putting myself in my art. Everything I make is, to some extent, autobiography. Currently, this game hits a bit harder for me, as I've given up my dreams of being a full-time creative, at least for the time being, and returning to working that same stable job. I feel like shit. I feel like screaming or crying. I feel like I've killed my darlings, but instead I chuckle with that absurdism because my old job asked for me to come back after my replacement got let go. I've seen now the mess that was made during that time, and I have to clean it up. And nothing ever changes. Sure, they gave me a bit of a raise, but I mean, I say I deserve more, but that's a national thing. I mean, I'm glad they know I'm good at my job, but I almost wish they didn't. Fuck. This game tells me things change. History tells me things change, but I look around and I don't see it. It can bring me down. I know I've been unwell for the past 11 months, and I know it have it well, comparatively. I managed to get 5 months off work. But I get why Peter burned down the Abbey. How does this progress that is meant to always win arrive? I worry that the progress half of time has lost, and all that remains for us is the erasure. How far do I need to run, now that all the wilderness has been commercialized? And here I go again. Why did I ever agree to be put down as on call? I should have just gone and changed my number. I want anything other than this. But I need to put food on the table, and I need to pay rent, and I need to move out of this apartment. No one's going to rent a house to someone who doesn't have a job. I wish I could have optimism, either by Christian faith or trust in history. I don't think you are wrong or ignorant if you do, but right now I don't see it. And that right now, it's lasted so long. I want to have something to say that gives you some concrete hope, but I can't. But I'll fight a losing battle. I'll die on any hill. Even if I don't have optimism, that won't stop me. Even if all I can do is make art. I'm an artist. And I'll be fine. Lord willing. The name of this section is Optimism Draft 2. I quit my job earlier this year. My last day was April 19th. I turned in my 2-week notice, but they asked me to give them 3, and I said sure. They asked me to remain on call, and I said sure. And now it's September 10th, and they asked me to return, and I said sure. I've mentioned before that I quit for a lot of reasons, and let me actually tell you the biggest one. I live in Portland, Oregon. We do not have sales tax, but we do have income tax, state and federal. By working a job, I am funding the genocide going on in Palestine. I've been saving up money for no reason, but I had enough that I could coast for a bit, so I quit. This was the only way I knew how to remove myself from what was going on, and now I'm a part of it again. As I approach 10 years of making music, as we approach 1 year since October 7th, I feel this question growing inside of me, and it's how do you continue as an artist, as an American, as a human? In 2019, I thought I would run out of songs to make. In 2022, I thought I'd released my last album. I don't know how, but I'm still here. I'm not Andreas. I'm not getting paid to make art that I dislike. I'm unpaid to make art that I love, and I wish I could take the best of both options. But I'm sure AI is going to succeed in its goal of removing financial stability from artists everywhere, so I might as well give up on that dream now. Like Andreas, in some sense, I currently have a choice of which lives are worth sacrificing, and I just have to make up my mind before November 5th. Activism matters more, but there's still no such thing as innocence when you live in America. Pacifism's an impossibility because inaction is a choice. That is why you pull the lever in the trolley problem. It isn't inaction protects you from the sin of responsibility. It's you are now responsible for death. Choose. This lack of innocence doesn't mean apathy or freedom from responsibility. It means you confront that shit head on and you act accordingly. Voting isn't the most important thing, but if I vote for Kamala, I'm in some way endorsing this genocide. I'm not an accelerationist. If Trump wins, I wouldn't be at risk. I'm white. And I know how to talk Christian. I'm not comfortable in saying a Trump victory is a risk I'm willing to take, because I've put nothing of my own at risk. I'd be offering the safety and comfort of many of my friends and family while putting nothing of my own on the line. If you're a minority and you don't feel comfortable voting for Kamala, don't! Because you're betting your own safety, and you know the risks. But I don't have an answer of if I should vote for her. And I don't even live in a red state or a swing state. But sometimes the best option is a bad option. It's just really hard to believe that this is the best option. No matter my choice, I'll regret it, and I'll never know for certain, and this conflict in me can only remain unresolved. Free Palestine.